Hello, everyone. This is 24 TV. We are on the Kakis Dialogue. The Kakis Dialogue is a progressive forum where we discuss issues with the intent of coming to a common solution that will result in recommendation for advancement of our common patrimony. And the Kaki Dialogue is the Kamara Abdullah Kamara Intellectual Dialogue. And this is in uh, honor of a friend and brother who passed while struggling for the social political transformation of our country. And we have with us here, joining us now is Mr. Denro Dixon. Denro Dixon is a leading expert on civil service reform and civil service commission. Mr. Dixon has worked extensively on public sector governance and was part of the technical processes that study best practices from countries like Kenya and Ghana, whose civil service systems are often cited as models for professionalism and independence. It brings both policy depth and practical experience to the conversation, helping us understand not just what the Civil Service Commission is or ought to be, but why it matters in the first place and how it should work and what is at stake for Liberia if it is done right or done wrong. Mr. Dixon currently works with the Governance Commission, and we want to welcome Mr. Dixon. Thank you for joining us live on Vote 24 TV.
Thank you very much, Sharon. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, so today we want to reflect on the Civil Service Commission. What we know about the Civil Service Commission basically is that forever it has been in the 1986 Constitution through Article 89A of the 1986 Constitution, which provides for, among other things, the establishment of the Civil Service Commission. Now, beyond that point, there was no detailed layout or provision in the 1986 Constitution that says how the creature of the Civil Service Commission should look like. You have been working on this and generally public sector reform for a very long time, and you have particularly worked on the whole conceptualization of the Civil Service Commission in Liberia. Do you care to help the public understand what the Civil Service Commission is and what are some of the thinking, the background thinking beyond the establishment of a Civil Service Commission?
Thank you very much. The Civil Service Commission is an entity of government proposed by our 1986 Constitution. So we can all say that it is constitutionally established, but it hasn't been a functional entity since its proposal in the 1986 Constitution. I think, if my memory can set me right, it is one of the only constitutionally established institution that has not taken shape yet. I mean, if you can recall, we have the GAC that was proposed, the National Elections Commission, as well as the Civil Service Commission. But the Civil Service Commission remains an entity that has not been established as per the constitutional provision. Howbeit, the Governance Commission being the key public think tank of the Republic of Liberia, we seize the moment to ensure that this key governance entity be established to play its requisite role that is required of it to bring decency to the public sector, to our public sector governance. So we sought to do that. And to do that, since we did not have a model, or we have had several writings from various persons in our dispensation, we thought it prudent to take study tours, to study various models and see which is adaptable to our context of governance. I recall we had a 3-country study tour, and obviously we were able to achieve on 2. And what we saw there, we thought to invite either of the both models, because we thought that they both related to us. That was the Ghana and the Kenyan model, but we closely aligned our proposal to the Ghana model. So we came back and we even drafted a legislation that called for the establishment of the entity. But that was in 2016-17. But to date, that entity it is yet to be established. And we've seen different variations of contents into the proposals that we've done. But let me just leave you with the historicity of our difficulties in getting established and give you the importance of it. I think the Civil Service Commission is a very key entity of government that intends to shift our public service. Firstly, I must be clear to say that it is called Civil Service Commission not because it is a civil service entity only. No, it is called Civil Service Commission because it is restricted by that nomenclature in our Constitution. When established, it should function like what we have in other jurisdictions called the Public Service Commission. So it is that animal we're trying to create. We were bickering on the name until we thought to remain with the Civil Service Commission nomenclature because it was constitutionally stated, and we could not deviate from that title since our Constitution has not been amended. So what that commission intends to do when it is established is to be an umbrella governing entity of the entire public service of Liberia. That includes our 3 branches of government and other parastatals to include the military sector, the paramilitary as well. So when established, it should serve as that key entity that lead in terms of public sector governance and leadership, in terms of how public servants and civil servants are all under one umbrella, protected by one policy and insulated into a way that you cannot, manipulate or try to play with civil servants as it is done in some way now. So All of our efforts to establish this commission points to a sound government or governance of decision that we are looking forward to when it is established, that Liberia will lead from one stage to another, because as it is now, we only have the Civil Service Agency that focuses on only civil servants. But we have two categories of public servants, of where public workers in Liberia. We have the public servants and we have the civil servants. The public servants are only protected by what the individual institutions, whatever policies they have. They are not covered under the civil service standing order. And whereas the civil servants are protected by the civil service and the civil service standing orders. So when we are successful in establishing a civil service commission, that will bring onto one umbrella every public sector worker, both public and civil servants, and have a series of policies that guide and protect not only employment but recruitment, promotion, and pay and grade across the public service of Liberia. Yeah.
So, given your explanation of the background and this whole idea of the Civil Service Commission being designated because that is what is in the Constitution, but in terms of scope, it covers the broader public service to include the military. So, and then you talk about the civil service agency that is restricted to civil servant as opposed to public servant. Uh, where do the civil service agency stands in this whole arrangement?
Okay, so we adopted a model. As I said, our model was closest to Ghana, and the Ghana model presents the Ghana Civil Service working under the Ghana Public Service Commission. Two separate entities, one supportive of the other, and another overseeing the other. We brought that model. What we imbibed in our proposal was to ensure that the civil service agency remain and the Civil Service Commission be established as a super body. Howbeit, for whatever maneuverings, we have changed our model, at least to my knowledge of what the proposals that we send to the national legislature for enactment, to have the civil service agencies folded into the commission. That is to say that when the commission is established, the civil service agency will cease to exist. Excuse me. That model, we are not too sure that it will serve the greater good of what our intent or what the intent of the public service or the civil service commission should be. So the civil service agency, as it relates to your question, sees itself as the entity that will be, turned into the commission. So it possesses itself as the entity that is ready to take charge of all of those elements and activities, as well as the functions of the proposed commission. We are not too sure what that model seeks to bring into bear, what we exactly intend to achieve. But the civil service is involved to that end, to an extent that I think the agency has taken some leadership or leading role in showing that the legislature passed a bill to establish a commission, since it sees itself as the one that will be transformed into the commission. So yes, so to that point, I think they are involved. Yeah.
So, largely, to a larger extent, the civil service agency has been represented over time as a cabinet level position, and most often
Right.
they sit in cabinet. Uh,
Right.
is is that how something like a civil service commission or a public service commission works?
No, no. From my knowledge, from other senior public servants that have been around, most of them, peace be to the adage, to include that the late Dr. Dominic Tarper and some of, like you say, Dr. Sawyer and others. The civil service agency is not or should not be a cabinet position because it should be independent. So I think there were a couple of invitations for civil service, to attend cabinet meetings over time. And that became a tradition until it looks like, or it has presented itself like it is a cabinet position, but it should not be. And I don't think the Civil Service Commission, owing to what it is intended to achieve or intended to do, it should not be a cabinet position. Of course, it can be the entity, when established, can be invited by the president to cabinet meeting for very specific reasons, maybe to make some presentations or to provide some clarity as the president may deem necessary. But it is not, and it should not be a cabinet position for that. Yeah.
And speaking to that point, if you look at the draft art, if you
Yeah.
look at draft art, uh, it says in terms of the scope, it says in terms of the scope of the Civil Service Commission, it says that it's going to cover uh, public institutions, including autonomous institutions, and then
Right.
it's going to also cover officials and
Right.
employees in the employ
Right.
of the Liberian government. Now, you talk earlier about the military or maybe the police also. How does the Civil Service Commission cover the military and the police, given that those entities might have different recruitment and placement standards?
Yes. So the way we envisage the commission, like it is in other countries. First of all, there are several subsidiary commissions under the Public Service Commission in other
Okay.
countries. Yeah. So I know you're asking about the specific categories of public sector workers like the military and the
Yeah.
police. So in other countries, what they do have, because they have the Public Service Commission, you will see other commissions under the Public Service Commission guide, to include immigration service, police service, military service, and all of those various services, each with defined categories and of how the processes are done. The intent of the Civil Service Commission providing that umbrella coverage is not to detect or change from the military style, for instance, since we're talking about the military, from the military style of how the recruitment or I mean, it's kind of done, but to guide the process and to lay down procedures that are protected, not only for recruitment but for promotion, and also how the retirements are handled, how the after service life, you will say, is handled. In our case currently, everything is left in the power of the Ministry of Defense. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but everything is left to that. So there's not much public service coverage. There's not much insurance coverage for the military or those servicemen after retirement. And that is of concern. Many a times we've seen some of our decorated servicemen retire and they go home or go with it to the family with nothing. The Public Service or the Civil Service Commission intends to address that. And I think that if we are allowed the Governance Commission to play this role in guiding this commission establishment in the on the right trajectory, we think we can solve most of these issues, because these are all issues of governance. No one should serve the state all his or her life and go back home and sit with the kids and become laughing stock in the community. We've seen in other countries that people honorably serve their country and they are honorably retired. That has not been the case with Liberia. And that is not only with the military, it's even with other decorated public sector workers and other decorated civil servants. So we think that the commission will set the standards, will guide the standard, and will be insulated from political maneuverings and manipulations, in that it protects the people it serves. It protects the servants of the people. So I just wanted to throw light on that. I think, yeah.
Now, talking about the commission being uh, there as that protector to ensure that the civil servants are insulated from political influences, political persuasion, and patronage. How does that work in terms of the structure of the commission that we have, I mean, that we propose now, and that of what you have seen in other countries? How does that work? What makes that commission very much independent?
Well, Aaron, quite honestly, and I'm not a politician. I don't want to become one, for at least for now. But to be honest with you, I'm not very pleased with the version of what is being sent or what was sent to the legislature. The version of the Civil Service Commission that was sent to the legislature has been greatly redacted from what we proposed, and I think that it does not serve the purpose of all of what we are saying. That bill will be passed, from my honest um, understanding of these matters. It will be passed, watered down, and it will not really serve to achieve the purpose for which the commission was researched to do. Honestly, they've changed a lot of contents of what the governance commission placed in there, and I think that not much of these areas that we just discussed will be in there. But the real intent of what we propose was to ensure that the commission serves the people rightly, as we saw in other countries, and the commission serves the government rightly. Look, let me digress a bit. Let me just digress a bit. Permit me. Um, when we did a study tour on the commission, We even got to find out that the commission helps the office of the president in both Ghana and Kenya in a way that when a president, before a president announces his appointees, those appointees are vetted by the Ghana Public Service Commission. They are vetted. They are not just announced like the case of Liberia, and then you get to find out you have square pegs in round holes. No, they are vetted. Someone may think that you want to usurp the powers or functions of the president to do those things. No, but that entity serves as a governing body that helps the president to make the right decision for the country. The president will not know it all. As we all know, the president, like no other president, is ubiquitous to be all around to understand everything everywhere. But that commission guides the president in Ghana and Kenya so much so that they recruit and hire and appoint the best. We looked forward to having that in our own commission. That's why we propose those things. But as it is right now, as what we are nearing to, I'm not sure we're going to achieve the best out of what we proposed, all because of very personal and political reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, so just as you rightly observed, looking at the art, the draft art, when it comes to the question of reporting, it says that the commission shall be responsible to and report to the president on its activities and regarding the performance of its mandate. And the only place that it mentioned the legislature is to be able to submit a quarterly financial statement to the legislature. So the commission, it says, is responsible to the president and reports to the president. And that is for the reporting responsibility. It mentioned nothing about the people, reporting to the people. It mentions nothing about being that independent commission that is actually serving the Constitution instead of the president. So the way it is put, almost like the commission will operate at the will and pleasure of the president.
Yeah, and I cannot agree with you more. Again, as I stated, these are all challenges that we should be willing to see when the commission is established. Look, the commission will be no way different from the civil service. We are just what we have before the legislature is just a glorified or much painted civil service agency. Yeah, that's how I see it to be. It is not the commission that we've studied. It is not the commission that we've read about and learned a lot from the officials. Being at the will and pleasure of the president is going to be seen as the best way for people who look at things the Liberian way, but that is not what that commission should be. Because when you establish an entity that should be far independent and leave it at the will and pleasure of the president, then you make it not insulated. You make it not insulated from politics. You make it susceptible to political maneuverings at different angles. So, yes, you're quite correct.
Before I move on to the other question that I want to ask, I want to say, no, because in the draft act, there is mention the civil society organization, CSO,
Right.
but a specific civil society organization or interest group, which is the Civil Servant Association, or the Civil Servant Association, is not mentioned anywhere in in the document or as a partner to the commission or whatsoever. It's not mentioned anywhere in the document. Has there been any time where your conversation or consultation took into consideration the Civil Servant Association?
Yes, we did. We did. In matter of fact, when we returned from the study tour, we had consultative meetings with partners, and I must be clear to say that the Civil Service or the Civil Servants Association is a key stakeholder in that matter, because we held consultation with them. They were part of one of our meetings, and we briefed them on the intent of the commission when established and how different it would have been from the current civil service agency. So yes, they are key stakeholder, and if they are not in a version that is currently before the legislature now, then you may want to agree with me that what we proposed was greatly redacted. Yeah.
And there is another thing that you made mention of. You talk about vetting process. You talk about
Right.
vetting process, and but when we look throughout the bill, we do not see very clearly where that vetting takes place in terms of how do we arrive at the board of commissioners? How do we arrive at selecting the board of commissioners? What are the processes? Did you consider anything like vetting of commissioners, and what thought ran into those, and what are the structures that you thought about?
So what we proposed was a vetting process that was merit based. In fact, we had stated in our version that the president, before appointment to the commission, should have several civil society and various bodies that will vet members of the commission. So I'm quite surprised that it is not in that version of the document, but it was clearly stated that the president will not just collect, or just appoint people of his choice. They must be vetted through a merit process, and there must be a committee set up to do that vetting and send the selected persons to the office of the president for appointment. So we did not evade the merit process. Apparently, again, what we have or what will be going there has been changed to take away the rigors of selecting the best.
Because the art, if you look at it, it resembles uh, any art of a ministry in terms of appointment of the minister. So it is left with the president to nominate and appoint the minister with the consent of the Senate. So the Senate now
Yeah.
becomes that institution that vets uh, this appointed minister, right? But in the case of the Civil Service Commission, the proposed Civil Service Commission, the one that to operate in similar fashion, the president nominates and then appoints the commissioners with the consent of the legislature. That is how it is, and it resembles what happens with the civil service agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what that's what I said. If you can recall, that's what I said, that the current proposals before the legislature is just a well painted civil service commission. I mean civil service agency. It has not it has not taken a shape, or it is not in a way that we send our proposal or what we did in the study tour and send our report and what we even drafted. There's this thing in there. Look, let me make this to do. There's this thing in this country that when you draft a legislation and you have embedded the best option for governance in there, people often, especially politicians, they often try to circumvent those efforts by putting things that suit them, or that will protect them. And that is totally wrong to our governance system. I think that many persons, especially if you are amending an act, and there sits somebody or head of entity who is part of that process, usually they always try to make sure the version that goes there suits them or is something there to protect them. And that should not be the case. You will never be there forever. You'll never be there forever. You are just there to serve for a time. And most of, I think, the persons that may have done these changes, they are nowhere near government right now. And it just tells you that these things are not necessary and they are counterproductive to our governance system. We've done our best in making this proposal, but we were short, handed by people going ahead of us and trying to change the great proposals that we did. So of course, you will see a lot of these things in a bill. You will see a lot of these things when the commission is established. Perhaps the only difference you're going to see is that the civil service agency will be called the Civil Service Commission, and the the the, the director general will be called commissioner general or so, and the deputies who will be called commissioners. I think that will be maybe the only marked difference you will see, but the same civil service way of operating and civil service scope will continue to be as it is.
Yeah. And one thing I observed with the art is that the art did not say specifically where the civil service agency is going to be, whether it's going to be existing along with the civil service commission or not. And if it is going to be folded into the civil service commission, there is no transitional provisions that say what happens to the civil service commission after the establishment of the civil service, what happens to the civil service agency after the establishment of the civil service commission, what happens to the human resource, what happens to equipment and the like, and what happens to fundings that they may have. So those transitional provisions uh, are needed to be touched on. What happens to their current leadership at the civil service agency? If, for instance, the civil service agency is going to be folding into the civil service commission, what are those transitional things that we characterize the folding into the civil service commission?
So when you see that, it tells you that um, people were not very cognizant of the editorials that they did, and they changed elements without having those thoughts that you are just espousing. So what we sent and what has been changed did not carry transitional provision because it was not expected that the agency be folded into the commission. The agency was going to remain, as I stated earlier, in the commission was obviously going to be a new establishment and a new umbrella body covering even the agency. So they did that, folded it up into one, and did not take cognizance that there needs to be a transitional provision in such laws when you are transitioning an entity from one stage to another. So that is the situation. That's why you're seeing that they don't have that situation there. But I'm being optimistic that the GC can still make some inroads in that. This there hasn't been public hearing yet. We're hoping that before that bill is passed, there'll be public hearings where we will really inject our feelings and thoughts into what is before the Senate or the legislature, because we want to be on record for stating what we've studied and what we propose, and that tomorrow posterity can judge us that we stated it. If they go ahead and pass it as is, well, the GC played a part, and posterity will judge us.
Yes, certainly, because the whole essence of the governance reform or the governance commission now has been to make sure that those things that gave created the pretext for the civil war in Liberia don't repeat itself. The GC was responsible to set up the guardrail through which our governance system can be protected from seeping back into those dangerous depths of bad governance. And the issue of patronage and political control of the civil service bureaucracy was one issue that the GC sought to change through the civil service strategy, the public sector modernization strategy, and the likes. And now, if you have a situation where there are possibility of a relapse into the re-emergence of patronage, then it ought to claim the governance commission attention to ensure that they guard the process sufficiently to the extent that the act that is going to be passed does not have too much vulnerability that will allow anybody to use it against the intent of the framers of the Constitution and the purpose for which the Civil Service Commission ought to be established. And like you rightly observe, most time we aspire to have things in our favor, but we barely stay to that position, and other people might not have the good intentions that we have, and they might exploit it, the weaknesses of the policy. They might exploit it to a dangerous and use it in a very dangerous way that is going to harm our society.
Yeah. Yeah, you're quite correct. I mean, I think until we move away from the self-seeking attributes we bring to public service, And we are not going to to have these things eroded out of the public sector anytime soon. As I stated earlier in one of my statements, I said that usually officials and leaders want to ensure that laws are made to suit them, when in fact they would not be in service position forever. And as I stated also that individuals that tempered with this law that we are discussing now, the bill, they are nowhere near the institution or near public service anyway. So it just tells you that we are quite correct, that people will often try to make these things look that it should be self-serving rather than people serving. You know, and it continues to go on from entity to entity, from situation to situation, and it's not really helping our country here. To be honest with you, I'm personally aggrieved over the way this commissions bill was handled, because I put a lot of efforts into this. I put a lot of efforts into this in the study tour and a lot of research, as well as writing the framework. So this comes, I take this as a serious thing that is really, I'm really feeling affected by it, not because I had any personal interest, but because I wanted to see the best thing done for our country. I'm of the belief and conviction that what I see good out there, that we should imbibe the same for our country. That's the only way this country will get better. But I cannot go and see the best thing out there. I admire what people do out there, and then I come and present or try to do the most mediocre thing simply because I want it to suit me. So, yeah.
And I guess one of the purposes for the establishment of the commission is to ensure that civil servants'
Mm-hmm.
rights are respected, and so
Yeah.
the commission, when created, should have this structure that
Right.
kind of receive complaints and hear complaints, because
Yes.
there are a lot of there are a few provisions in the act that talk about appeal to the Supreme Court. Now, if you talk about appeal to the Supreme Court, it means that the commission should hear complaints, receive complaints, hear complaints, and the commission should be able to have a whole complaints handling and management system, right? So I want you to elaborate on that responsibility of the commission, if it has any.
Yeah. So you're quite correct. The commission should be it should protect civil servants. As I stated earlier, the law we provided was to insulate it so much that civil servants cannot be tampered with in a way. And of course, going to the Supreme Court will become the final arbiter. But it even went beyond that point of just protecting the rights of civil servants. It went to the point of what we propose went to see that the entire public service or civil service, if I may say, is insulated from political maneuverings wherein a regime will not just come to power and then flood the public service or the civil service with their partisans. No, we envisage a civil service that was guided by professionals and experts in the various fields. So we of course, and the recruitment process coming to the civil service will not just be your profession, but will be merit base, where you are recruited based on merit base. But and so much so that we envisage that such some of these attributes were very key to our governance landscape. But you are quite correct. We are not seeing much of it in what is now before our honorable legislature, and this is disheartening, I must admit. Yeah.
And I don't know the current composition of the head, the leadership of the civil service agency, but looking at the draft act, you have provision for only three commissioners. Only three commissioners. And if you are talking about a commission that should conduct hearing and handle complaints, there has to be a separate department. There has to be a separate department or a separate uh, functional, category that talks about complaints handling. And if that is the case, then it means that there also has to be a commissioner with oversight in that area. But besides that, if you have three commissioners and two commissioners constitute a quorum, you would then be suggesting that two commissioners can, sit over a hearing, uh, so to speak. And if the commission has that hearing function, the act does not clearly specify how that function uh, handled, is supposed to be dispensed, because there isn't any specific line for complaint handling or complaint management function within the commission.
Yes. Aaron, I'm even shocked more to hear that you're talking about three commissioners or three officials. We had seven. We proposed seven. And there were arguments about the seven, and people were thinking that it could come to five. But we had seven. And what you see there as the three represents the three officials currently at the civil service. I'm not saying they are the ones that will be appointed to the commission. I'm saying they were looking at, they narrow it down to the current configuration of the structural or placement of the current civil service agency, which has three officials, one head and two deputies. So obviously it defeats the purpose of what was, because we had commissioner responsible for recruitment and promotion. We had commissioner responsible for different aspects and key core functional areas of the proposed commission. So hearing that there are only three is not only surprising, but it's very disheartening, I must admit. And it defeats the purpose of the, because what you're trying to tell me now, you're trying to tell me that only two commissioners, just what you're saying, only two commissioners are required to have a quorum. How that law will be written, what it is, the chairperson and one commissioner or two other commissioners except the chairperson, or in the absence of the chairperson, is something that needs to be understood. Because if you're saying two, are the two referring to the chairperson and one other commissioner, or two of the deputy commissioners can make a quorum? And if that be the case, if the latter is the case, then you'll be going for a problem, because that means those two deputies can hold serious policy meetings and take decisions against the chairperson, which we should not be. So again, it is a recipe for problem. I think that what we had was the best, to have, something that will be more representative of how quorums are usually done across our governance system.
Yes, certainly. So, uh, what we see here is that we have a creature that has deformity, and the legislative drafting bureau of the legislature can try to strengthen the legislative languages in the act, but they will not have that technical expertise, and they are not sufficiently versed to talk about the design and what it intends to achieve, and what particular model is going to serve the purpose for which this creature is established. And so they cannot make any significant alteration in the art if those with the technical know-how do not inform them through uh, the hearing process about the defects in the bill that is before them. And so I think it makes sense for the civil servant, the Civil Servant Association, and other interest groups to take interest in what is before the legislature, and to engage the Governance Commission more and more, and also for the Governance Commission to engage the stakeholders to at least try to put the process back on course. As you mentioned, the most of the alteration came before the current administration, and so perhaps we could say maybe the current administration did not reconsider and take a keen look at the document, and so there could be some uh, need for recall and to review the document and resubmit.
Yes, you're quite correct. We will really depend on or look forward to the legislature for that public hearing to inject what we think is best for the country. But again, um, we could have. I agree with you. We could have recalled the document, but then we must be quick to point out that it was submitted by the president. So you don't want a situation where you're recalling what the president has submitted. I'm not sure we would have been giving ears to that. I thought the only opportunity could be during public hearing where we make our case known and we try to provide the best advice that we could. So that's it. That's it. The only thing is that except this current president would have withdrawn the bill and send it back for technical consultations. Yeah.
Okay, so it was submitted by the previous president or the current
The
president?
previous president. Previous president.
Okay, so there is possibility for the current president to recall and
Right.
yeah, and then review.
Right.
Yeah. So I think the what we carry is that the bill currently as it is has some defects that needs correction, and we need to explore the opportunity to be able to do that. Uh, but it was wonderful having you, and I would just like to ask you to make your parting comment in 2 minutes, and we can, you know, uh, part for the day.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Weedy. I appreciate the effort in bringing me to the platform. I I thought the conversation was thought provocative, all in the interest of making Liberia a better governing state. And I look forward to more of this engagement on any public sector issues that we can contribute to. And yes, I think that usually in Liberia we obviously maybe having our first or second dreams by now, but I thought to stay up to participate in this, which I think makes it an important engagement. So thank you very much. I appreciate and look forward to more of these engagements.
Thank you very much. And that was Denro Dixon, an expert on public sector reform and civil service commission. He has been giving us some perspective on the current draft Civil Service Commission Act, and we have taken away issues to consume. Uh, there are a lot of issues to ponder right now, and we call on the Liberian populace, especially the civil servants in Liberia, to take interest in the Civil Service Commission establishment, because once the commission is established, it is going to serve the civil servants and the public servant, and your own aspiration, giving your observation over time in terms of how things work in the country, will be very much relevant in making this commission work once it is passed into law. Thank you, Mr. Dixie, and you are welcome anytime. We will reach out to you anytime we have issues of concern surrounding your area of expertise, and we are very grateful that you turn out even during these late hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Harold.
Well, folks, that was it. We had Mr. Denrod Dixie. He's the program manager of the public sector reform mandate area at the Governance Commission. The Governance Commission is that entity that oversees the reform of the public sector in Liberia, and it is generally responsible for ensuring that policies are formulated for the reform of our governance system such that it is possible for our democracy to work and to be sustained over time, and such that it is possible to erase the abuse of power, such that it is possible to ensure that human rights and dignities are respected, such that it's possible for the civil service and the public service to work in the interest of the people, such that it is able to ensure that the private sector, the enabling environment for the growth of the private sector is created. And it was wonderful talking with Mr. Dixie, and it was a good thing having all of you viewing us from everywhere across the globe. We thank you for participating in this uh, dialogue, the Kaki dialogue, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow again at 10 o'clock. Thank you and welcome once more to our broadcast. Have a nice day and good night.